Hi there. This video is for flutists who might be newer to the instrument, who are struggling to make a sound. Either you're not getting the sound that you want, or you might not be getting a sound at all. And so I'm going to talk about a couple of ways to fix that. There are a few common errors I see with beginners a lot, and these tips will help you kind of overcome those. So the first thing you want to do is pucker and pout. Some students who've been able to make a sound like on a soda bottle, blowing on a soda bottle, sometimes will pull everything back really tight. And while you can make a sound with tight smiley face, it makes it really hard to play high notes later on if everything is tight and back. So practice pucker up like you're going to kiss your grandma, and bring everything forward and pout. And we've all pouted before when we haven't gotten our way. So we're just going to practice just on our finger. Don't even get out the flute or your head joint. Just pucker and pout. And you see how I'm just rolling my entire lower lip out along this finger. And I feel these corners kind of being pushed forward into my finger, just like you're going to want them to push forward to the lip plate of the flute. Pucker and pout. And it's a good idea to check yourself in the mirror when you're doing these things, because a lot of times what you feel is happening is not actually what's happening. Sometimes I guess we can lie to ourselves, or our bodies don't have enough experience doing these new things that it feels different than it is. So practice in front of a mirror, and practice in front of the bathroom if you need to. The bathroom has great acoustics, so you'll sound great in there. The next thing you want to do is have a tiny opening. This is one of the biggest issues I see. Almost all new flutists have this. Their opening, we call it the aperture. The aperture in your lips is so big that they're just losing air into the room instead of having it go down into the flute. So imagine that you have a tiny grain of rice and you're just putting it kind of right here on the inside of your lip, on the wet part. And so hold it together, and you can actually even do this. I have students do this who are really struggling to make a sound. You put it here and close down because you're puckering, right? So you're holding your grain of rice between the wet parts of your lips, and then just practice spitting it out into your hand. And your hand should be in front of you and down in good ways. And you know what? If you get it on the floor, it's okay. It doesn't matter, because you can vacuum that up. Another way to check yourself is with one of these little coffee stirrers. So pucker and hold this between your lips. Blow. Your opening should not be much bigger than that. This is all you need. So, and I know sometimes younger students feel like, well, I don't need to do that. I can get it. I'll learn it without. But they're even professional. I see professional world-class flutists, who sometimes will just feel like they're not using their air real well, because all of us have things that we can always improve on. And so they get out a straw and they finger the notes on their flute while they blow through a straw, and it helps them really kind of refocus their air. So it's a great tool for everybody. So give it a try. And if you don't have a straw, we'll try to get one. They're easy to find at like McDonald's and Starbucks and places. But and I have some if you're one of my kiddos. But this is just your straw. If you bring this forward, that is your straw. Forward and close down enough that you're controlling your air. You've all seen the garden hose, and sometimes the garden hose, if it has one of those twisty nozzles, the water can kind of go out and shoot out everywhere. Or if you twist it, it will come in and it will be just very focused and precise. And that's what you want from your air. You don't want it to go everywhere. You want it to narrow, so that it's really it's accurately aiming at the target. And so you narrow your airstream by bringing this forward and tiny. The third thing is making sure your lower lip is covering 1/3 of the embouchure hole on the flute. So here is your embouchure hole. I see two things a lot. One is that the students don't cover enough. So if I see the whole entire embouchure hole, they can still make a sound, but they have to blow like crazy to do it. Like that. And that's a lot of work. If you're too rolled in, that takes a lot of work too. It's just so much easier if 1/3 of your lip is covering. Check yourself in the mirror. Check yourself in the mirror. So pucker, make sure you're puckered enough. Because if your lips aren't puckered, then you'll have to really, really roll in, and you don't want to roll in. You want your lips to come forward. And if you hear as I'm rolling in and out, it doesn't take much for me to totally lose the sound. So you just want to make sure that you're not covering too much or you're not uncovering too much. So this one might seem kind of self-evident, but a lot of times when students are new and they realize it takes a lot of air to play the flute, they take a big, huge forced breaths, and their body really tenses up, and you don't want to do that. So it should be easy to play the flute, and I'm going to say that again. It should be easy to play the flute. And I know that seems kind of funny because here you are with this struggling to make a sound, and it's not easy. But if it's not easy to play the flute, it doesn't mean that you need to try harder or blow harder or breathe more. It just means that something is not aligned correctly. So once we align everything, your airstream and your lips and your jaw, once everything is aligned correctly, it is easy to make a sound. So when you breathe, think about how you feel at the beginning of a yawn. When you're yawning, you're taking in a lot of air, but it's really relaxed and it feels good. So sometimes I see just the shoulders raising and the neck, just, everything in the veins in the neck are just bulging, and you don't want to do that. Just, keep everything loose, relaxed. Breathe in, just feel yourself filling up with air. And I just kind of envision myself filling up just all the way to the floor, and all the way up my head and all the way out. Just kind of fill everything up, but not forcefully. And then when you blow, you're blowing, right? You want a precise air, and you want to blow enough, but you shouldn't be blowing so much that your eyes are bulging in your head. And I see that sometimes, just that the strain of really blowing hard. And I also see students who really aren't blowing enough. So just think about, if you have a birthday candle on your cake, not one, clear across the table, because then you really have to blow, but one fairly close, how you have to blow that candle out. And that's kind of a good indication for how much you need to blow. Now this is the last thing. So you want to aim your air downward. Remember the coffee stir a minute ago? Let's put it back in and practice just changing the angle of it with just, your mouth and your lips and your teeth. You can put it behind your teeth. So what do you have to do to aim this straw down while remembering to pucker and pout? Because that's how your mouth and your jaw and your body should feel when you're aiming air into the flute. Because these lips, your embouchure, is your straw, and you need to aim that downward. So whatever is kind of going on with the straw, you need to imprint that in your mind and recreate it with a flute. Another thing you can do is hold your hand in front of your face about 1.5 feet away from your face. Then without moving your head and without moving your hand or your arm, blow all the way from the tip of your fingers to your elbow and kind of back and forth and figure out what you need to do to aim your air down. You want it to go down, 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 down. And then once you've figured that out, and I'll give you a hint, it's kind of what we did a second ago. Try to make a sound. Try to make a sound on the flute. Now, let's kind of recap some of this. So we talked about puckering and pouting. So we're going to do that on the head joint now that we've done it on the finger. Puckering and pouting. So do you see, you can kind of see how rolled out and soft everything is. And how different that looks if I'm like pulling my corners back. And I know sometimes it's hard once you've gotten a sound out one way to kind of change it to a different way. But you just have to try and be patient with yourself. And it's easier earlier in the process than it is later, because you don't want to have to wait till high school or college to fix your habits. Pucker, pout, pucker, pout. Check yourself in the mirror. Teeny tiny opening. So I'm going to get in here and I want you to see. What I see is usually this. But what I want to see is this. So you can hardly see my you can hardly see how large my aperture is because it's closed down pretty good. And when you're practicing on just the head joint, it's actually easier to make a sound if your hand is covering it like this. So it's good to kind of practice this way if it's a big struggle for you, and then eventually you could take your hand off. You want to make sure your lower lip covers 1/3 of the embouchure hole. So here we go. I'm going to kind of come down so you can see. This is mostly uncovered, so you can see like the edge. So I really have to blow to get a sound, and if I'm covered too much, I hardly get a sound that way either. So there's not much margin for error. You have to kind of really make sure that you're right where you should be. Breathe and blow. Breathing is something that's tough because we all just breathe without thinking about it. So if you need to write it in your music or do breathing exercises 3 to 5 times throughout the day, which I try to do. I try to just practice kind of inhaling and exhaling, or I run up and down the stairs to kind of get everything opened up. Because it kind of feels good if you're not exercising to the point of exhaustion, right? But even if you just increase your heart rate a little bit and then your breathing increases and your body is more efficient at breathing, and practice yawning and think about how that feels. Think about just filling up with air from the floor to the ceiling. Think about filling up with air from your abs to your lower rib cage. I like it when I can kind of feel my lower rib cage open a little bit. So think about breathing and like your abs kind of expanding into the waistband of your pants a little bit. But it should feel good. It should feel good and not tense. And I'm going to just show you a good blow here too, because right, if I'm not using enough air to blow, everything else could be lined up really well and not working, but if I don't have enough air, I'm not going to get a sound. Or if everything's lining up and I'm blowing too hard, I'm getting like this crazy high-pitched noise. So when you're getting these high harmonics, that's usually a sign that you're blowing too hard. But usually you're blowing too hard because you're rolled in or out too far, or your opening is too large. Check the list, the list I just shared. Okay, and so the last thing, and I have to keep checking my list because I can't remember the order I told you. the last thing is to aim your air downward. So if everything else is lined up, but I'm blowing straight ahead, I don't get a sound, right? But if I am aiming my air down, I'm putting the flute up the exact same way it was a second ago. I'm just aiming my air down. See the difference. A couple things about that too. Do you know how it feels when you're fogging up a window on a winter day? Like that, your throat is kind of opening, or think about how Darth Vader breathes, like that. So when you're kind of opening the back of your soft palate a little bit. You're opening up, and that actually helps aim your air downward too. Even if you're not changing anything else, you're just thinking about blowing warm air or snoring. That will help aim your air downward. Pulling your corners down a little bit. The more your corners come down, the lower your angle of air is. And if you open your teeth just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit, you want to stay relaxed and not really force your jaw open. But if you open it just a little bit, just making sure that everything feels nice, then that helps aim your air downward too. So I hope all these things are helpful. I hope that we learned something here. I hope you remember to practice with a mirror. And the main thing is not to give up and just keep trying, because sometimes even if we don't always know what the problem is, eventually your body just figures it out, even if your brain can't quite troubleshoot. Sometimes your body just figures it out, and then it starts working for you. So just if you even put in just 5 minutes a day, just kind of blowing for as long as you can, just 5 minutes a day, or 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes in the evening. It's just the daily practice, the cumulative minutes that will really help. So I just encourage you to keep trying, and let me know how it goes. Okay, happy practicing.